Well, and if Jeff was in charge of the biscuits, there'd be no biscuits.
No biscuits.
No biscuits.
Okay, we're going to start in 3, 2, 1. Okay. So I'm joined here with two lads who are starting a podcast. They are both qualified financial advisors, which I don't have a clue what that means, but they're going to explain it. They're also qualified retirement planning advisors. Don't have a clue what that means. And special investment advisors, which all sounds very boring, but after this we're going to talk about debt. So just very quickly, what does QFA mean in terms of your...
Over to you, Jeff.
Sorry, John, I'm just finishing a biscuit here, so
no.
I'll throw it over to you.
Well, actually, that's the essence of it. Lads who sit around drinking coffee and eating biscuits.
Okay, sounds like a good job. And then after that?
Well, the idea of the QFA is to give people advice on how to best look after the money. It's not rocket science. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty logical, most of it. But you put it down in words, and you actually follow those words, and it could change your financial setting, the way you track your finances in the future.
Do you think by doing the course, it's changed your attitude to money, stuff that you didn't know about it and things like that?
Yeah, a bit. I mean, most of it was logical, but it just highlighted different points to me and made me aware of them. And I act on a lot of them now. For example, I would have had a few quid lying around doing nothing. But now I'm actively looking after it, making sure I'm getting a bit of an interest rate in it, stuff like that.
And would you think, Jeff, it's a problem that most people living in this country are not fully aware of what they can do with the money, or how they can utilise it better?
Yeah, I think a lot of people will try and avoid looking at that question, because sometimes they might know that there's not much they can do, and therefore they feel that it's something that's out of their reach, and they kind of let it go, if that makes sense.
I think it's kind of funny, actually, you say that, Jeff, because I'm brilliant at sitting around doing nothing. I could do it all day. I had money sitting after we shut our business down. I had money sitting in the bank for 2 years, earning zero interest, just being killed by inflation. The QFA stuff reminded me to stop doing this. You can't tell other people to look after the money properly if you don't do it yourself. So that's the thing it's given me.
Yeah, but I think that you are fairly financially savvy just by nature, with your kind of mathematical background and the way you think of things. Where I think I would be the same. So the QFA for me was good. It focused maybe my thought process, but I've always been I've always been good at sort of analysing expenditure and income and where money is and how it disappears. That makes sense. So
I'm very good at the disappearing bit.
Yeah.
Do you think people are just lazy, or they just don't know, or it's something that's always on the back burner? Because I did see an ad on TV, and it was, I can't remember what pension fund, but it was like put it off, and then suddenly they said, right, today I'm going to do it. Do you think that's the case?
Oh yeah, the ad about them in the coffee shop.
Yeah, but is it that people are just lazy, or they just don't think about it?
Well, it's they're putting it off. There's always something else to do. You make a list, you put on your list, and you say, I'm going to get that done by Tuesday or Wednesday, and you do it. It's the only way to do it. And as I say, Jeff reckons I'm pretty financially savvy, but for someone who's supposed to be financially savvy just leaves his money sitting around for 2 years.
Yeah, but I know you're not on the ball on one or two things, but that's, we all need to be, as you said yourself, we all need to sit down and kind of focus and have a plan.
Yeah, you need a little push as well sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's why I think the QFA, that's what we'd like to maybe do to people here. Give them a little push, make sure they're looking after themselves properly.
Just one thing on with Phil's question there. I think a lot of times people also are busy saving for other things, and they may not have the time or money to put into, let's say, pensions or investments, and therefore they kind of put it at arm's length.
Yeah.
They'd love to do something about it, but it's not in their sort of financial thought process at this time.
Yeah, I agree. I'll tell you what. Should we talk today? We're just it's a brief introduction. We're going to talk a bit about debt, and we're just going to see where it goes.
I remember the best day of my life was getting out of debt.
Was it?
Yeah, I remember I had credit card debt, fucking debt here, debt there. Excuse my French, I just cursed. I'll get rid of that. Debt here, debt there, and then I just made a plan, and the plan was to pay 10 quid a week off or something like that, and at first it was having no effect, but it was still coming down. The numbers were coming down, and then I do remember when I cleared that debt, it was just the burden is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think you made the point there. Once you start something, once you get the little ball rolling, and it picks up speed, and that's exactly what you're doing with pensions. You know, this new all enrollment, you know, 1.5% of your salary, it's not going to make any difference to your pension, but it gets you thinking.
Explain that.
Well, all enrollment is you're going to be initially for the first 3 years you're going to be putting 1.5% of your salary away for your pension. And the government's going to chuck in a little bit, and your employer's going to chuck in a bit too. But you know that's not going to make any difference.
1.5%. That's all.
That's all.
So if you earn 100 quid a week, €1.50.
Yeah.
Goes into a pension.
Yeah, from your side, €1.50 from your employer, and then 50p from the government. So you'll get £3.50 a week into your pension pot.
And when the employer pays that, is that technically extra salary he has to pay?
It's extra salary, yeah, it's a cost.
Really? So your salary's gone from 100 quid a week up to €101.50 per week for the employer?
Yeah, and an extra 50 cents from the government as well. So it's €102 a week.
So did he ever get that back? No? It's literally 1.5% inflation for the employer.
It's basically a cost on the employer, and it goes up from 1.5% to 3% to 4.5%. So it goes up every 3 years until it reaches this, 4.5% extra. It's not to be sneezed at if you're a small business like we were, trying to tick by.
Well, it's actually a great idea. But, the world's changing, and the world's changing in terms of even of employment and different things like that. So, to say to an employer, here, we got this new plan that's going to cost you more money, I don't know. It's a lot more burden for the employer to hold.
Yeah.
Especially, for smaller businesses.
Yeah, well, I think what smaller businesses will do now, they'll factor it in when they're employing somebody. So instead of paying them 100 quid a week, they'll start paying them 98 quid a week, and the extra 2 quid will come.
Or instead of employing 10 people, they'll employ 9 people.
Yeah, exactly. Now 1.5%, it's probably not going to affect too many people. Yeah. When it hits 4.5%, it might be a cost. Maybe it'll mean that people will get paid slightly less, or that slightly less people will get taken on. But it has to be taken into account.
If you guys had a choice, would you get rid of your debt first, or would you invest first? So, say you had 10,000 of debt, and then you had 10,000 of money to invest. So not free money, spare money. Would you pay your debt off first, or would you invest first?
It's funny. I had this conversation with somebody before, and we're all traders. And the guy was saying, "Yeah, as a professional trader, I invest the money." And I was thinking, no chance. Happiest day for me was when I paid off my debt. Same as you, Phil. Just the weight that's lifted off you. The psychological weight is huge. Now, maybe from a financial point of view, maybe I should be investing in the markets. But, from a psychological point of view, I think it massively outweighs it. Just get rid of the debt. Debt is just a noose around you. Once it's gone, it frees you up in so many ways. So for me, it will be to pay off the debt.
I think, I know for me, I'd be very similar on that, but I think it would depend on the repayment of the debt, the terms of that, the investments you think you can get, and also your current situation of what you're doing at the moment, i.e. in terms of your employment. If you've big income coming in, you can service the debt easily, and therefore you have investments. So I think everybody's slightly different, but I know from my perspective, I don't have much debt. I've never had much debt, and I think I'd always try and play it with no debt.
Yeah, I'm thinking back again. First time I ever borrowed cash, I was just finished college in '91. No jobs around, and I needed a few quid to get out of the country so I could get a job somewhere else. I borrowed about $3,000 from my grandmother to get a flight to Japan. And happiest day in those 2.5 years.
Did you pay her back?
So I did. I paid. Okay,
happiest day. Unfortunately,
happiest day in
I
your life.
have a miserable fucking life.
Yeah. Worst case for her life.
One of the things while I was in that debt, it was always on my mind. She'd gone out of her way. She got dipped into her credit union to make sure I could get out there and give me a bit of a chance to get a start. So as soon as I saved up enough cash to pay the $3,000 back, which took about 6 months out there, back in 91. That was quite a bit of cash. Yeah, I was absolutely chuffed to pay it back. And again, the relief, it made me feel like, yeah, I can do whatever I want now. I can take a flight here, take a flight there. You know, I'm not beholden to anybody. So yeah, it was a really good feeling. And again, the same with the mortgage. You know, once that's gone, again, the relief, it's yours. No one can take it away from you. You know, the bank, you don't have to answer to the bank. You don't need this. You know, anyway, that's it.
Yeah, no, I think I'm sort of along the same lines. I borrowed money from the bank to go to Chicago, and I paid that back quick enough. And it's hard. You realise when you're young, it's actually hard to pay the debt back. You know, with interest, it just builds up. It's easy to borrow. It's easy to spend. It's just hard to pay back. And I think that's something I learned then in the States. I had met friends as well. They had credit cards at a young age. They'd borrowed money, and we had a conversation. And it comes down to the interest that they're paying, and you're just looking at
what is the interest in those cards? It's about 22% or something, aren't they?
Well, I don't know if it's monthly, compounded monthly, or...
It is. It's 1.5% compounded monthly.
Yeah, it works out at 24%, or 24 to 30%. All the ads on TV, you see them in the really, really small print, which I can't read anymore, by the way. I need glasses for it.
Welcome to life.
Yeah, well, you know.
Before we go further with debt, just so people can understand what you guys did from background. You guys are traders. We just explain, for the Irish market, they have a term called dealer, okay, which I think is similar to a trader. But so people would say, working in Davies, I'm a dealer and stuff like that. But just explain what a trader is, and just quickly what your background in trading is, and what cities you're in, and things like that.
Okay, yeah. So I guess a trader, technically, from my sort of perspective, is somebody that makes, buys a product and sells it for a profit.
Like Del Boy.
Hopefully for a profit.
But technically, Del Boy, you know, if he's buying, you know, an old coffee machine or an old 3-wheel car and able to sell it for 50 quid extra, I mean, you know, that's buying and selling. So
actually, can I interrupt there, Jeff, and say that's like my dad when he lost his job, when he you know, conglomerate moved into the country and opened up right beside him and put him out of business within 12 months. He started buying Christmas trees coming up to December. Well, load of Christmas trees, flogged them at the top of the lane where we lived. Yeah. One of the best Christmases we ever had.
Well, there you go.
And it was all cash in hand. Yeah. And unfortunately, he's dead now, so taxman can't get it.
So, for people to sort of understand what traders are, as opposed to Del Boy, it would be something like there was a movie called Trading Places with Eddie Murphy, and it was set in Chicago, and they traded things called commodities, so sugar and wheat and orange juice and all this stuff. So you guys used to work on the big exchanges in the big cities, so like London and Chicago, and you go to work every day with another 1,000 traders, so to speak, in one room, and you'd be buying and selling products that the exchange listed. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, pretty much that's what we did. I think I started in the Life Exchange in London, the Futures and Options Exchange out there, and moved to Chicago when it shut down after 2000. Jeff, where were you in Chicago? You were in the CBOT?
So I started in the CME and then in the CBOT, Chicago Board of Trade, trading bond options, 30-year bond options. But just on that, Phil, you know, for certainly for me, I was more specialised in the long bond in the US and options on the long bond, not, you know, trading just willy-nilly exchange products, if that makes sense.
So people always say when things go wrong with trading during crashes and stuff like that, they always say that they're incredibly complicated instruments, but they're not, are they? Really?
No.
Is it just buying something for low and selling it for high? Like, as you say, buying a car for $1,000 and selling it for 1,500. Is that the same thing?
And when the market crashes, you're no longer buying for $1,000 and selling for 1,200 quid. Instead, you're buying for 700 and selling for 800.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're selling it for 800 first and then buying it back at 700 because you think it's going to crash. So it's different. But
is it highly mathematically based?
No, not especially. It's more streetwise. It's a streetwise job, I think.
Yeah.
One of the smartest traders I ever met was a guy called Lardner. Paul Lardner. Well, actually, I can't remember his name. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Present company excluded, of course.
Yeah.
But you know, I think he has maybe 2 GCSEs like Rodney.
Yeah.
And you know, so dedicated, hardworking, and I think that's the real secret.
Were they salesmen or were they Were they doing mathematics in their head? Or were they? Because the best traders the best brokers I ever said were what were called barrow boys.
Yeah.
And barrow boys, they used to sell apples and oranges from the barrows. Literally, that's where the phrase comes from.
Yeah.
But they could buy and sell anybody. They could sell sand to the Arabs, snow to the Mexicans, or to the Eskimos. Like, they were amazing. You know?
Yeah, it depends really. You know, there's two kinds of traders. Traders such as brokers who do trades on behalf of other people.
Yeah.
And then you've market makers and proprietary traders who will do the research themselves and execute the trades and will get paid based on how their trades do. So there's two different kinds of traders. The broker trader is a sales job.
Right.
You know, you make relationships with clients, with big businesses. You get their business in, and you get paid every time you transact on their behalf.
Do you remember that scene from The Wolf of Wall Street when he's talking to what's his name, the actor? God Almighty. And he says the most important thing is you never let the client out. You always put them into something else. Okay. So all the time they're giving you 2% or 1%, and they don't. You don't really care how they're doing, if they're actually making money or like losing money. You're just getting fees.
Yeah, the Wolf of Wall Street. That's a typical example of a broker trader. Right. Again, he makes his money every time he gets a client on board. He transacts on behalf of the client.
Yeah. And he doesn't care which way the market goes.
He doesn't care as long as he gets a deal across the line. He gets paid.
Okay.
If the deal loses money, it's not his problem. It's somebody else's.
Yeah, just on that though, I think if you look back at when the Wolf of Wall Street was the time frame, was that like the 80s or 80s into the
what was his name? Jordan Balfour, was it?
Yeah,
Balfour. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think the brokerage and commission, the lack of communication, no mobile phones, no high speed broadband, internet, things happen slower. Very different to nowadays, where a broker, he could be acting on your behalf and maybe getting a percentage of the income, of the winning income. But I think back then there's a lot more. You could probably, I'm sure they could hoodwink clients a lot easier, as you're saying. Never let the client off the hook, or keep them on. So slightly different to now, where it's all high speed. It's all online.
How many years' experience do you have, both of you?
Oh, I started trading in London in 1995.
Wow, so 30 years.
Pretty close to it. I had a couple of years off in between, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd say similar to John, 95, 6.
So not being cynical about it, but do you think that brokers, without naming names, because we can't, allegedly, do you think brokers do care about the outcome for their clients, or is that a driving force, do you think, for them going to work?
I think they have to care about the outcome for their clients, because if the clients lose money, they'll no longer be their clients. Mm-hmm. So from that point of view, they do. And I think most people are decent as well. So most people want to see their clients do well. They want to see their friends. They want to see people in general do well.
Yeah, just on that, though, it depends on the broker, right? I mean, if you're just acting as a pure broker, where the client's making all the decisions, then it's up to the client. Obviously, if the client is gambling, well, it's not good. But unless, sometimes you can be asked, like a family office where you're actually a broker, but you might have discretionary decision making over some of the accounts. So it's slightly different on that, maybe, where if you're just a pure broker, you're just there to execute orders.
I think we should get back to Phil's question before about what kind of traders we are. Myself and Jeff are both proprietary traders. Where we
what does that mean?
It means we take on the analysis and we take on the decision making, and we get paid based on how we perform. If we lose money, we lose money. If we make money, we get paid money.
Oh, so you get a fee. So depending on how well you do, you get a fee on that.
Well, yeah, basically you get a performance fee. You don't get any fee for execution, because you're coming up with the execution yourself. And in our firm that we shut down a couple of years ago, we basically, if the firm made money, we made money. If the firm lost money, we lost money. So you basically, you survive by how you perform in the market.
Is that a fairly common type of trading, or do people generally work for big companies, or do they work for themselves?
I'd say it's the smaller percentage of trading, simply because most trading is done on behalf of insurance companies and big firms who are allocating money into the market. Whereas guys like us will be trying to look for little niches and little corners where we can squeeze out a few quid here and there. We'd be looking for inefficiencies in the market, and looking to try to make money off those inefficiencies.
Yeah, John, sorry, I think the one thing you didn't mention there, that we didn't have any clients.
Oh yeah, we know clients.
So that's, it was, I suppose that's the...
So you got no one that you're answerable to? Basically.
No, which is nice.
Well, you're answerable to the pot of money that you're using to try and generate income.
Okay. So with all that experience then, going back to the debt, the 10,000 that you have in cash and the 10,000 you have in debt, mathematically, which is the best thing to do?
Oh, for us, it's definitely to actually invest in the market.
But so that's opposite to what you said about debt, though.
Yeah, but the psychological element, I think, is probably at least as important. And when you remove debt, it frees you up mentally. It frees you up. Yeah. So for me, I've heard traders argue, oh yeah, we're good at this stuff. We should invest in the market. We should have debt. A lot of traders feel that, but I think there's a little bit of arrogance involved in that too.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. But and even if it is true, I think the psychological benefit of having no debt outweighs the extra few quid you might make.
Do you think that? Do you think the same, Jeff?
Yeah, sorry, I thought you were going to ask a different question. Yeah, I do. I said, but I come back to what I said earlier on. It depends what you do, and even if you were a high-powered, let's say, broker, dealer in a large firm, pulling in huge income, it doesn't matter if you've debt and investments. As long as you're on top of your overall, your balance sheet, say. So it's different, I think, for us being proprietary. I think it's hard to try and make decisions if you've big debts in the background and you feel you have to cover that.
Yeah,
I think it's easier if the debt's small or negligible.
So there's a bit of fear creeps in when you're thinking about that.
Well, I think it's just another headache.
Right.
So without any debt, you can just kind of just feel you can focus on making a return on whatever investment you've put down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay.
You're not worried about having to pay back other money. So even, I suppose, when we started the firm, the money that went in, there was no borrow there.
Yeah.
Right? It was all capital put into the firm.
Yeah.
And all we were responsible to was the shareholders that had put money in, including ourselves.
Right.
So there's no debt.
Yeah.
And I think also doing that, I didn't bring any debt into the firm. I didn't have any debt outstanding. Not sure about you, John, on that, but so we were younger too, right? So
my granny being paid off for a couple of years at that stage.
Yeah, right. I'd say it didn't pay her back. So listen, what happened? What the hell's going on with world debt and government debt and all that?
Oh, it's not even real. It's not real anymore.
But has it always been like this, or was it? Does it go back to Nixon and the oil standard, or the gold standard, or something? How come it just is exploding and no one's aware of it or talking about it? Or are they talking about it?
I'm sure they are. I'm not too familiar when it started to explode the way it has recently. I mean, the US debt is, what was it? How many trillion? Is
33.
33 trillion at the moment.
34.
I think it was yesterday. It's probably 34 today.
Yeah.
But if you ever look at the debt clocks, there's a very good website, and it's the World Debt Clocks. Yeah. And actually, I think we're the only country that's going backwards.
Oh wow!
The Irish debt clock's coming down, believe it or not.
Yeah, is that a percentage or
a few places that are?
I'd say Norway's no debt. Sure, they have their massive fund, but it's just, have governments just said to hell with it? We're just going to keep. Like, do you ever hear this concept, printing money? You've obviously heard that.
Yeah.
Is that what they're just going to keep doing until?
It would appear so.
Yeah.
There doesn't seem to be an end to it. So yeah.
Because you hear this expression, "kick the can down the road," and every time I hear people saying, "I think we're coming to the end of the road," but then 3 years later, there is no end of the road. We just keep doing it.
Well, I think as long as the world keeps growing, the population keeps growing, etc., GDP keeps growing, they can afford to do this. But once it starts to contract, it's all going to end, because the debt will no longer be financeable. Governments will have massive obligations in terms of retirement, and they won't be able to meet them anymore. So what happens? They're going to turn around and tax young people 90% to work. Young people aren't going to work. There's no incentive to at that stage. There is a point when the world will stop expanding in terms of human population. I don't know when it's coming. I thought it would come about 5 billion people, maybe 6 billion people, but it seems to just keep trucking. I mean, I think 100 years ago, what was the population of the world? 1 billion people. Yeah. Now it's up to 9 billion. Those numbers are only an estimate, though. They're not accurate.
I think in one of the ancient countries next to Babylon, I can't think of it, it starts with an S, but every 47 years they had a thing called a debt jubilee. So whatever debts anybody has, they all get wiped out on the 47th year. So as you're lending money, so say you're lending money in the first of the 47th year, you charge low rates, obviously. Then it gets higher and higher and higher as you're heading up to the 47th year, you know. But is a debt jubilee possible?
So just on that, what age do people die at back then?
Well, I'd say quite
23.
young if they have to pay their debts.
So,
I suppose, yeah.
you know, it's a different...
That's a good point.
But I think if there was a debt forgiveness program that was introduced randomly every now and again, I think we'd all look at debt differently. We'd all be taking on a lot more debt. Because
and
why not?
win the lottery and have it wiped out,
It could get wiped out, so therefore, yeah.
But as regards world debt, like say, would China not say the States or something like that? They'd say, look, you guys owe us, whatever, 10 trillion or something like that. This isn't helping your country with this debt, so let's just cancel that part of the debt. Is that a possible thing in the world? Is that possible?
It's definitely possible, but again, it's just a political game. It's is it going to happen? Probably not. You know, not between China and the States.
No, I think the price of gold and silver is showing you the way now. It's
Explain
gone up.
that.
Well, the price of silver has gone up to I got to say roughly $75 a
What?
bucks.
Who's your daddy? I bought silver for $12 an ounce.
There you go. Well, there you are.
Great.
I
I'm
illegally
very happy with that.
I was going to say I illegally smuggled silver into this country at about $15 an ounce.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yeah. Well, no, I still have some actually.
Okay, well, we'll have to cut that. Okay.
No, but the price of gold anyway, record highs as well. So you know, if that keeps going up and up, it just shows you that the value put on money is less and less, and you need more and more money to buy a physical asset like silver, like maybe property, like metals, like art. I think a Superman comic sold there for was it 17 million, 13 million maybe?
Jesus.
That was only a week ago.
I threw mine out.
No, well, it was Superman #1.
Yeah.
And I think it's some association with Nicolas Cage. But
What?
yeah, it's a side story on it. Okay. He lost it and it was given back to him.
Right.
But
so you're saying the price of gold going up? It's actually
price of assets.
Okay, so that's not a reflection of the scarcity of gold. It's a reflection of the evaporation of the value of money. Is that
well, that's what I think. Yeah, I think so.
Well, that is probably the only way debt will be eradicated. Basically, one day the governments of the world are going to turn around and they're going to put an extra zero on the back of every dollar bill, and that way the amount of debt will decrease by 90%. And it's kind of happening now in a kind of roundabout way. You know, if you look at stuff like cryptocurrency and stuff like that as well, I mean, technically worthless, but people seem to accept it as a means of exchange. Yeah,
no, sorry, just on that, and that's the problem though too, because exactly what John's saying there is one of the only outs where you keep printing money and devalue the currency. However, it pushes the assets up, and then you look particularly at young people that maybe don't have a property or don't have any assets. You know, it's going to be harder for them to find work, and it's going to be the stuff that they've got to buy is going to cost a lot more. So there's no by printing money, and it's not a great solution for people that don't have means, if that makes sense.
Is hyperinflation stoppable once it starts? Like we have inflation running about 6% now. They say it's 2%, but no way. Definitely in this country it's not 2%.
Well, it feels a lot more than people say it is. I mean, I went to Starbucks the other day and the coffee was up to $5.25 for a medium decaf latte. I think it was.
Really,
I was shocked. I took out a $5. You know, I'm one of the few people I think that carries cash. You know, and it wasn't enough. I had
you know
to go
the
to
weird
my card.
thing. The weird thing I've noticed: the price of cereals. Cereals are still $5.
Are they?
Yeah, like you get a good thing of Frosties for $5, you know, and they were always worth $5. You know, it's like, and I was thinking to myself, I was in the local Spar and it was $5.25 for crunchy nut cornflakes, something like that, and I'm thinking corn is obviously one of the biggest commodities in the world, and that's not going up. So, how real is this?
Well, I think you know, soy, for example, produced in the Amazon rainforest, all that kind of stuff. I think. You know, America rules the tech world, and the price of tech keeps going up and up and up, and become more and more valuable.
Yeah,
and it feels like products produced in these poorer countries, the price of those commodities are staying the same. They're not really going up at the same rate.
How do you stop hyperinflation? Or how do you stop inflation? Is it interest rates have to go up, isn't it?
Once inflation is there, it's there. And it's going to trickle on for a couple of years. It doesn't disappear. There's no real way to make it disappear. If, for example, the price of everything doubles overnight, 100% inflation, then people's wages are going to have to go up. And others, different wages will go up at different rates. And then people start spending more, which will, again, further stoke inflation. It's a cycle. It's very hard to break the cycle. They say increasing interest rates breaks the cycle. It doesn't. It puts a temporary stop on people's spending. But,
I think you're right. I think if you look at Argentina and Turkey and places like that have very high interest rates at the moment, they've very high inflation too.
Yeah.
Very high, and certainly in Argentina.
The two go hand in hand. And once you're in that cycle, it's very hard to break the cycle.
I think I went to see Konstantin. Remember Konstantin Gurdjieff used to write for the Irish Times? Yeah. He was a Russian economist, and he did it was a wave mechanics seminar in Trinity College, and so he did a study of inflation from the 1350s, and he did all the big ones. So the wars, the building of the canals, there was a huge spike with the building of the railways, obviously. Things went up, and then the tech.com booms, all that. So he put all the different graphs he did. So he did about 10 or 12 graphs, and then he melded them all together at the end, and the answer was 2%. That's what inflation is every year. If you from 1350 till now,
that's how it averaged out. Yeah,
that's what it averages.
And all the spikes came around the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah,
about massive progress.
It would have been the massive explosion of the railways in Britain. Then he incorporated the railways in the States, the canals, World War II. Actually, World War II, the inflation came down because the government suppressed prices, and there were so many people working and all that. But it was kind of like, but that was what it was. So it came in about 2%. So, but I wonder if he was to do it now, would it still?
Well, it's interesting then what's going to happen with AI, because some people are going to make an absolute fortune out of AI. A lot of people are going to be a lot less well off because of AI. For example, a lot of jobs are going to be lost. So you're going to have one part of the population with increased spending power pushing inflation. You're going to have a huge section of the population with less spending power, relative spending power, which will be a drag on inflation. And
I think that's I was talking to somebody who's a cleaner, and they just basically, they're on, say, 20, 25 grand a year or something like that. And the rent is now, it doubled last month.
Wow.
And they just can't afford it.
But are they outside the rent control area, or
no? They think the reason they're doing it is that the landlord wants them out so they can double the rent, whatever, because they've been there for years. Okay. But it's kind of like they're sort of heartbroken a bit because they're going, there's nothing we can do. We can't live anywhere. That's it. We're done. And it's. Yeah. I'd imagine a lot of people, like younger generation, are thinking about that, saying, what are we going to do? So it's like, is there any solution to this debt stuff? Is debt causing this? Maybe that's the first question I'd ask.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it is. I remember when I was a kid back in the 70s, 80s, everybody owned their own house. The people didn't rent. And, the idea of renting, it wasn't even out there. Now you've got massive companies building these huge apartment blocks for rental. Everybody's kind of getting in this rent trap where, you can't afford the rent and to save for a house, etc. It's just not possible. So what do? You work until your 50s or 60s, whatever, renting a place, and you reach that age like your friends have done, and they're at this stage they're working as cleaners to make ends meet. Again, there doesn't seem to be an answer for people like this.
Just coming on that, I think part of the problem there for me is that the government is allowed. I'm not. It doesn't matter what political party, but the government is allowed.
Sinn Féin, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. No, but the government is allowed investors to come in and use the property market as an asset.
That's actually right, Jeff. To monetize the property market.
Yeah. So as you were saying before, when you were younger, I'm sure that happened. People had an apartment or two or a house or two, but it wasn't the norm, and it wasn't an investment really that people looked at. And now all of a sudden a fund can come in, there's no point going on about it, but and buy an apartment block and rent it out, and everybody else can go spit. That's a huge problem. And so that it's not a debt problem. It's a problem of maybe pushing up prices and then just, again, concentration of wealth.
Well, that's exactly what it is. Once a fund buys an apartment block, it means that those apartments aren't for sale to ordinary people. So if you have 10 people trying to buy something and 8 houses have been removed from the market because they're owned by a fund, that means you've got 10 people competing for the last 2 houses, and they're just fighting each other. Only 2 of those people will ever be able to buy. Now they say rental is a great thing. Without these rentals,
Is that not how they do it in Berlin and Paris and all that stuff?
it is, but there's rent controls over there,
yeah.
and they actually work over there. Over here, they don't work.
They don't work.
No, they don't. I was renting a place, $1,200 a month. We were paying. We were told the place was being sold.
We're only messing around, so you can do it. Yeah.
We were told the place was being sold, moved out. 2 months later, it comes back to the market at $1,900. So it was more than a 50% increase in less than a couple of months.
So going back to debt then, when we were all buying houses or growing up buying houses, it was about 4 times the average industrial wage was
That's
a
right,
house.
yeah.
Now it's gone to 10 times.
Oh, is it that high?
Yeah, so the Irish market's 10 times. The average wage is 447,000 and the average house is 470.
Oh, that's in Dublin.
Sorry not to put on that as well. You normally have 2 incomes now rather than one.
Right, but
back in the day.
So is the debt thing then, so suddenly you're going from 4 times your salary of debt to 10 times your salary in debt?
Yeah.
I mean, that must be quite serious for anybody, no?
Well, it just excludes people from the market. It's especially again with the rentals. You can't do both. The only people who are buying houses now under the age of 30 are people that are getting help from their parents. I could be wrong on that.
No, there's some people,
exceptions.
obviously, yeah, of course.
But if you take a cross section of 100 people under the age of 30 from different backgrounds, you'll find that maybe 5 or 10 of them, without the parents' help, will be able to buy a place.
And so, as QFAs, speaking to other people in the business, what do they think about the property market currently? Or no, I'm not looking for a direction. I'm asking about younger people buying into it.
Well, so just say I've talked to a couple of young people recently, not in a QFA capacity, but I've had a few conversations, and you can feel there's an anger there. There's a frustration.
Sexual.
What? No, there's a frustration or an anger there that they feel, and a couple of these people have good jobs, like they make good money, but they feel that why would they take on massive debt? They've seen it
as in buying a very expensive house.
Yeah, if they could get there, if they could even get that, and then be completely tied into that and be subject to massive payments, and there's an anger there. A lot of them talk about friends going to Australia. Certainly leaving Ireland. I mean, America's no.
But the Aussie property market's to the roof as well. It's
but I think there might be.
Way up there.
But I think there might be more opportunities down there, in general. Just that's what they feel. Well, actually, no. Obviously, they're going down there. I think the rents will be cheaper and stuff. I think that they're able to afford to live down there. They're able to get jobs and have excess income over.
Well, jobs, yeah, but I don't think it's. I think it's very expensive down there now in Sydney.
It's expensive, but still, I think there is opportunities there.
Do you remember when you were younger, when you were paying rent? I remember my rent always being 20% or less than what I was earning.
What is it now? Do you think?
Say
45,000 is the average wage.
After taxes, I'd say it's at least 50% for most families.
Okay. So that's a bit of a killer, obviously. Yeah. The one thing I always think very strange about Ireland, when I was living in London, it took me half an hour to get to Gatwick from Victoria Station, and I wouldn't see the first cow for about 29 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, on a pretty high-speed train. When I'm in Dublin, 6 minutes I see a cow leaving Dublin's central station. So it's not the lack of space, right? I mean, like you're in the centre of a field after 6 minutes.
Yeah, you know what though? You see, we were kind of talking about debt. You could go back to a situation of how Ireland was formed. Where the ownership of the land was, how the structure was there. There's buckets of land. There's plenty of land. But I think that's a kind of separate question. If you break down who owns a lot of the land in Ireland, then we have that question. Then we could see.
Does QFA, as part of that course, do you guys, or part of your education and stuff, does property come into that?
Sorry, repeat that again, Phil.
Does property come into the whole QFA thing, or is it more...
Yeah, QFA is about mortgage advice as well. It's
Right.
about how to get a mortgage, what you need to do to get one. And surprisingly, a lot of people feel they're not eligible for mortgages when they actually are. The
Give me
market,
an example.
Well, they feel that they have to have a certain amount of savings. They have to, have a certain kind of track record. But they don't realise stuff like when you're renting a place, that actually counts as a kind of saving. You're demonstrating to a bank that you can actually take money in, hang on to it, and pay out again, which is what they want to see if they're lending you money. They want you to be able to do the exact same thing.
I never thought about that. So the fact that you can pay your rent.
Yeah, exactly. It's
shows
the same
you
as
pay a
paying a
mortgage.
mortgage. Exactly.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, you pay a higher rent than you'll ever pay in mortgage. In this country, at least.
Okay.
But also, I think if you have gambling accounts, or they can look at your outgoings, and so.
Paddy Power.
Well, no, Paddy Power, yeah. So they
Really?
can look at your Paddy Power account. Well, they can see what kind of a risk kind of take you are. I mean, are you, do you have a habit there? Are you spending money? I mean,
So would they actually look at like something
I think they can,
200
yeah.
quid a month?
yeah.
Well, the fact that you actually have an account, they look at that. That was actually one of the questions on my mortgage application. And the mortgage broker advised me to shut my accounts down straight away. So
Jesus.
that's what I did.
So would a bank look at that and go, okay, this guy might have a bit of problem? But say you spend 100 quid a month consistently over 2 years. Would the bank just say, yeah, that's a bit of a hobby? Or something
Oh
like
yeah,
that?
I'm sure they have their levels of analysis there, right?
Yeah.
But bottom line, if you would try not to have, you could close all your accounts down. 6 months later, technically you haven't got a gambling account, unless you have a gambling problem. But you're better off just being.
I don't have a problem. I just keep losing. That's all.
There you go.
Well, that's actually a problem.
Yeah. But then, so how far do the banks look back? If
2
you're
years?
applying for a mortgage?
Again, I'm not sure
Yeah,
about
I'd
this
have to
one.
check that as well. I'm
6
not,
years?
6 years?
Wow. 6 months.
Oh, months. Okay. Sorry, that was
Actually,
an accountant friend of ours just came in and said 6 months. Okay, that's good.
There's an exception to that. If you're self-employed, they'll go back at least a year.
Okay.
Well, they look at
3
your
years?
spending habits.
Oh,
That's
3
what they
years.
want. They want to see that you're, that you're going to be able to meet your repayments, and you're going to be what would you say a good.
Does this include charities? So say you're giving 100 quid a charity every month. The bank look at that and go,
Well, like a charity like Paddy Power.
yeah.
No. But obviously, because that charity, you can stop the payment.
Okay.
But yeah, it's funny because even as say if you're a young guy and you maybe you do like to bet 50 quid a month or 100 quid a month, it's maybe immaterial to your overall income levels. But again, you're just better off not having it, depending on what you want to borrow.
Okay. So just sort of coming to the end here a bit, but what would your advice be? Like, is it to take it on as early age as you possibly can? So if you're in your 20s and you've got your credit card debt and stuff, what would your advice be to 20-something-year-old?
Oh, don't. If you got credit card debt, get rid of it. It's expensive. It's got to be paid at some stage, and the interest, whatever, 20-30% a year on top.
When you see these credit cards that offer 0% for 6 months, if you transfer, what's the story with them? Are they just they're just basically hooking people in who have a problem? Is it?
Yeah, it's basically it's like in a gateway drug. They basically get you in there, get you using the cards, and then hopefully you become addicted to them, and they can make a ton of cash off you. The same as cigarettes.
Okay. So would you say then, Jeff, as well, so if you're in your 20s, the first thing is before you even think about pensions or stuff, it's just debt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I think though you can take on debt for small investments, like if you have to buy a car so that you can get to work, or that you could I don't know, maybe create a business. But taking on debt for consumption, fancier clothes, bigger holidays, bigger car. Certainly when you're younger, there's no need for that. There's no need to keep up with the Jones at a young age. Keep the debts down.
That's
keep the
obviously a lot
investments up.
easier than said than done, though, is it not?
Well, I suppose for me, not really, because I don't try to keep. I've never. I got a hole in my shoe here. I like my shoes. I hate shopping. So it's easy for me. But I suppose if you like to shop, maybe some people have an addiction with shopping.
A friend of mine, she did a very clever thing with her credit card. She changed her limit to €300 per month.
Oh, that's quite
Or
good.
sorry,
That's a really good idea.
300 euros. So that's the max she can spend before she has to address the issue and go back and pay it off or pay some of it off. So she can't go like nuts on a weekend, go out for dinner, blah, 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 go shopping. She knows she has a 300 euro limit.
It's quite small, 300, you know.
Yeah, but it just like stops her going nuts. And then once the 300 is there, her credit card will get declined.
Yeah, but some people are very logical and they can build up a credit card debt and pay it off by the end of the month, and therefore there's no interest. So, you know, you can be, if you're smart and you're on top of things. I've never had a credit card.
Smarter than the average bear.
Well, yeah, smarter than the average bear. But as I say, I've never had a credit card. I have a debit card. There's money on it, and you go from there. You don't buy things that you can't afford.
That's an amazing attitude these days to have. I mean, it's...
Well, but a lot of it's digital money, though, as well, right? I mean,
our parents were brought up with that. Like, they saved up to buy things.
Yeah, we used to have the green shield stamps they were back in the day.
Jesus.
My granny would have books of them.
Just pre-World War II.
I kind of remember them now.
Well, there'd be books of them lying around the house. You know, with 2 books you can buy a kettle or something like that. You know, which was pretty much a luxury item back in the day.
Fascinating. Okay, look, we're going to wrap it up there for the first issue or first podcast.
Well, yeah, thanks, Phil. It was
all right, cheers.
Very, very enjoyable.
Very enjoyable. Yeah. Okay. Cheers, boys.
Thank you. Bye.